Hey guys, welcome to Jay's Helper. In this video, I'm going to help you to get a better understanding on closure. I will walk you through a few steps. What is closure? What is closure scope? And what's the difference between closure and a block? You may not find any relationship between closure and a block, but there is a relationship. I'll explain you a bit. And if you are using closure in an object, how it's going to impact the performance, we see the best use case for closure also. Let's start with what is closure. If you are a JavaScript developer, I'm sure when you attending an interview, you might come across this question. So being a developer, you should know the basic understanding of closure, at least what closure does or how closure behaves in JavaScript. If you have no idea what is closure is, this video can help you give a better understanding on closure. Or if you already know what is closure is, just think that you are brushing your skills. So let's see what is closure. Closure is nothing but a function preserves a data from the outer scope. In one word, if you want to put what is closure is nothing but a function holds or preserves the data from the outer scope. So that what closure is, that's what the documentation of JavaScript says. To put an example where b equal to 1 and I have a function inner where a equal to 2 and a is a variable which is defined inside the function, so the a is accessible inside the function, and when I return a plus b, so the b is what? The closure. Any data which is accessing outside the scope is called closure. But most of the places you see the closure function in a different way. It looks like function outer and then they probably return this function. They say this is a closure too. So from my understanding, both are closures. If you either wrap up a function with another function, or if you're accessing the value from the outside scope or a global scope, both are the same. So both defines the same thing, that a function access the value from the outer scope. It's called closure. Instead of running directly, I would say console directory outer. So when I run this on the console log, you can see it returns an anonymous function having a closure of b value 1. You don't see this mostly on any of the consoles if you're using Chrome, and if you're running this on a JS Fiddle, it shows that a closure as a scope inside this function. In general, this is what closure is. So closure holds a value from the outer scope. That's it. That's what closure is. And how many scopes actually it holds? So it holds a local scope. So it holds the local scope, which is nothing but A, and it holds the outer scope, which is nothing but B. And if I define C where C equal to 4, which is the outside scope, and when I run this, let's remove that. When I run this, you can see a closure of outer and a closure of a global and a global function. So everything is a closure to this function. So closure scope define local scope and outer scope and a global scope. So all these scope, when you access a variable from any of this scope, it considered to be as a closure. So basically this two puts in a closure and this able to access whenever the function calls. So function holds the value whatever it defined by itself, and function preserves the value whatever defined outside the scope. In many of the example you can see like they refer as outer scope as a one single function, but in reality it can be many functions. So if I have a function outer 1 and then define a value where a equal to 1, and then if I return a function and then where b equal to 2, and again it return a function where c equal to 3, and again it returns a function which returns everything, return a plus b plus c. So what happens if I console this outer one of 1, 2, 3? So let's see this 3. Let's remove the other one. Okay, so there you go. Let's put one more function so that we can able to get the other function value. A, B, C. So all these are closure. So it's nothing but the outer scope is not just one outer scope. It can be any functions define the above scope. So this is what the closure is. Alright, so now you have a better understanding what is closure and how the closure get accessed from the local scope, outer scope and the global scope. Let's go to the third one. What is closure and a block? Okay, now I have an interesting function, or it gives you a much more clearer description when you try to access closure inside a loop. Okay, so let's say for where I equal to 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus. Now if I console.log I, so what you expect to see is like 1 0 1 2 3 4. That's fine. So that's what we expect to see. What happens if I set timeout and then I have a function and put this console log? So if you have been working in JavaScript for a long time, you can immediately say this function executes only 4. Let's see, it just returns only 4 because when the for loop executes, set timeout holds the value of I and I is keep being increasing. So at the end, the value of I is 4. All this time the set timeout been called for 4 times, so that's the reason 4 been executed 4 times. So how to fix this? If you are a JavaScript developer for a long time, you know how to fix this. Just move the function outside. You can put that inside the loop or outside the loop. Give a name for the function, pass the variable, say a, and then call the same function and pass I inside the function. And if you run that, you see 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's fine. This is how we've been using this before ES 2015. After 2015, they introduced a variable called let. Let me go back to the same way how it was before. If you run this, you see 4. When I change the keyword from where to let, I see the result 0, 1, 2, 3. Why? Because let is a block scope. So when you define let, I value holds the variable based on the loop and it holds only for the block. So that's how the block scope works. Okay, so let's see what's the difference between closure and a block exactly. If I define a scope and then say where a equal to 1 and then there is a function called inner and inner has its own variable where b equal to 2 and it returns a plus b. If I run that console.directory inner and execute this, you see inner function holds the closure of value a. If I change the keyword where to let and execute the function, you see the function holds the block scope of a. So this is why there is a difference between a block and a closure. If you are using anything with the let keyword holds everything in block scope, where if you define with a where keyword and even the scope is not within the function, it considered that as a closure scope. As you've seen before, closure preserves the data from the outer scope. So if the outer scope is a block scope, it holds the value inside the block. Okay, let's see how the closure is going to impact the performance when you're using inside an object. You know, closure is nothing but a function. It preserves the data from the outer scope. But when it comes to object, it's going to be a different impact. For that, I'm not going to give you any examples here. I would recommend you to follow the closure documentation from JavaScript MDN. There they define why you should not use object for closures. If you are giving an interview or if you're working on closures, if you want to describe what is closure, try to avoid object because object has a prototype architecture. It's a different concept altogether. So I would recommend not to use object when you define or when you try to explain what is closure. Let's see what is the use case. What's the best use case for closure? I just came up with one simple example for closure. You can take that as a reference to explain what is closure is. It's nothing but a tables function which prints the range of a number from 1 to 10 here for two tables. If I run this function, I see two tables, 1 to 2, 2 to 2, 4, 3 to 2, 6. I can change the range from any numbers, so 55 to 60, and call that here 55 to 60, and then change the tables, say 5 table, that should print it exactly. So how it works, so I can have 1 to 10, should be 1 to 10, and then const to 10 to 20, then that should have table limit of 10 to 20. Then I can call the other function and pass the same table. Fine. So if we execute it, I see 5 tables from 1 to 10 and 10 to 20. So you might be asking where the closure is. So if you print the directory of this constant, you can see the closure. So closure holds the value of start and end. Hope you might be having some understanding on closure. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I will get back to you. That's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching.